Hello, my name is Juha, and I'm here to introduce you to Headless Frontend SDK. It's fully written in Typescript that it's compiles in the JavaScript. So it's a library that you can use to build your own custom UIs on top of the Klevu search and merchandising and recommendation products. It's fully open sourced. You can find it from the GitHub, and I'm here to introduce you through the installation and usage of the SDK. So what it's for, in the whole JS ecosystem, there's some mobile application frameworks, there's front-end frameworks, there's static website builders, there's e-commerce websites, all these places we wish for the SDK to run and give you better, easier ways to develop your custom search experiences and product finding recommendations. It's really easy to use Typescript library. The goals of the project is to have documentation inside the code, so you don't ever need to go outside of your IDE in order to learn everything what you need for the search. It has all the documentations. It has quite easy programming API inside of it. We have extensive code examples in a repository in React, Vue, Next.js, Remix, and more coming up right now. So what does the SDK do? It's just a layer between the API and the UI. It's there to take all the work, what you need in order to bring the API data into a project. You just concentrate on building a cute UIs and ignore everything else. What it does, it fetches the JSON data. It handles the analytics. That's something really important, what we need for the Klevu to work properly. And then on top of these, we have also filter state management, because usually the handling the state between selections is quite hard in different frameworks. So we are providing tools to make it even easier. In this presentation, I'm going to go through the quick search result page, smart category merchandising, and analytical calls. The quick search means that you have some kind of search box in the front page or in the top of the page where you get a few suggestions on the products, what you are trying to find, and then suggestions on what you should search on your keywords. And when the user presses enter or goes somehow forward, it usually goes to the search result page where you can filter out the results and modify the search in more ways. The smart category merchandising, it's a category page where we use a Klevu AI to determine which is the best order of products for the category page. And usually there is filtering happening in that page too. So if you're familiar with Node environment, it's really easy. Just npm install Klevu core into your project and then start using it. It's fully module-based and it works with most of the systems right away. And once again, you can go into GitHub and check out the code and make all the suggestions over there. So how do you initialize the code? You import in your index or your start of the file or in your app.ts or JS or in your server side or in your whatever place you're trying to use the Klevu SDK. You first take the Klevu config, you initialize it with the URL and API key. The URL is the server where we're fetching the data, and the API key is to identify your shop. These are not secrets, so you can provide them openly to any place. This information can be found from the Klevu Merchant Center from the box.klevu.com. When you log in with your shop, we will find the URL and API key in the settings panels. And here is the simplest hello world. So we are importing a Klevu fetch. It's the main fetch function of the SDK. It fetches all the data, what you need for your things. You can provide multiple searches, multiple queries in it. You just put multiple functions inside the Klevu fetch function, and it does the search for you, the queries for you. And in this example, we're doing a simple search from the whole product catalog. It searches for a hello world, and it's just the products what is searching in this example. And the results is fetched with queries by ID. By default, the search function has an ID of search. So this returns the results from the hello world. And here is an example how the quick search works. I'm going to show this you to in a VS Code in just in a moment. But as we can see here that there is multiple queries happening in the Klevu fetch now. There is a suggestions and the search, and we get the results from those with the suggestions by ID and queries by ID. And it's put in a event listener to listen key presses, and then we do the search again. At this point, I'm gonna show you an example in the VS Code. Here's the quick search example. It's real simple HTML file. It has just the head, nothing in it. A simple input box, which can be seen here, and then the one pre-tag to output the JSON into it. And then we have two files, init and quick search. The init is here. We just import the Klevu config and do the init just like I showed in the presentation. And then we have the quick search. And this has a little bit more stuff in it. So we are importing the Klevu fetch search and suggestions from the Klevu core. First, we get the text field element, this one here, and then we start listening key up events in the text field. And whenever the user presses button and releases it, we do the fetch. But because we don't want to spam our API, I have created the custom small debounce function that runs this code only when the user hasn't pressed the key in 300 milliseconds. So it's wrapped around the debounce function. But first, it clears the result from the pre-tag. It's just simple helper function that clears the pre-tag. Then you can write your own logic in here. I have created a small logic that do not make the search before you have at least 3 characters in your search. And then we have the Klevu fetch. And here we can see when I'm hovering around over top of the Klevu fetch, we can see the results. So it takes any amount of functions and queries them. In this example, we have 2 query functions, suggestions and a search. The suggestions, we are providing a search term, which we get from the text field value. And we are putting the same result in the suggestions and a search. And on top of that, we have put a fields parameter into the search. So we want to reduce amount of data what we are fetching from the Klevu. The default, it will fetch all the fields. So it will show just these 4 fields. And when we do the search, seeing results. So first we get suggestions. We have 5 suggestions here, and then we have 5 results. And of course, if we want to change these options, we use the code completion. We can say, no, we want 3 suggestions. Now when we do the search, we get 3 suggestions. And the same way, it's easy to modify how the search function works. We can change the sorting. The code editor automatically suggests that, okay, this is the enumeration to fetch all the different ways to sort the Klevu fetch. So we want everything sorted by price descending. And now when we do the same search yet again, we see that the most expensive hoodie is in the top. And then we have this print to output that prints it out. And here we can see that we can see the ID. We are fetching the results by the ID because we can make multiple searches. We need to identify them from each other's. So if we change this to the test and save it, now if we do the search, we don't get any results. That's fine. So this is test. We get the results once again. We can make multiple searches like I showed in the presentation. So let's say that we want to fetch the hello world with ID of hello. And then let's print it out in the bottom. So now when we do the search, that's first the suggestions, then the test search, and then there's the hello where we find nothing. We can show what kind of results the whole object is. So there is no records coming out, but we can see the metadata and all the parameters what we have used to fetch the data and results. So let's get back to the presentation. So there's multiple different kinds of ways to query. We have created these helper functions like a trending products. It basically changes the way the normal search works, and it gives you the most trending products in the system right now, in your store right now. We can search multiple records and in different places. Here is an example where we search for products. The type of record defines that what kind of things we want to find. You can define your own things. And by default, we have these three: the product, the CMS, and the category. So the CMS is the normal text-based pages, and the product is the e-commerce products, and then we have the categories, so you can search categories at the same time. This Klevu fetch, when you're surrounded with one Klevu fetch, means that it makes just one request to the server, which makes it faster to fetch data and fetch multiple things, so you don't have to wait for multiple requests to resolve. So everything is built from query functions and modifier functions. These are two building blocks used to create fetches to Klevu backend. And this is the structure. So you put multiple queries in the Klevu fetch. Usually there is some parameters in the query, some options. And the last item, you can put any amount of modifiers. It can be 0 to all of them if you wish. If the query function doesn't support parameters, options, or modifiers, it will tell you, and the Typescript compiler will help you to guide through. So what kind of query functions we currently have? We have search and suggestions, what we have shown. Then we have trending products. We have a category merchandising, which uses our category merchandising product to show the category pages. Then there's a helper search category and a CMS, which is modifications to a search, so you can easily find these. Then there's a recommendation type queries, URLs, trending, similar products, also viewed. And this requires the recommendation product enabled in a Klevu to function. There is even more, but they're currently available in the documentation and in the GitHub and in the Klevu website. Then there is a modifier functions, which modify the way the queries work. We can list filters, we can apply filters, we can say fallback queries. If we don't get results, we can do some, for example, trending product search in a case that we don't get enough results from the search. We can enable personalization. We can enable A/B testing. We can do manual boosting of reports within different ways. And what does the Klevu fetch result to you? So we have seen the queries by ID and the suggestions by ID, and the raw API response in the VS Code. the most interesting is the queries by ID, where we can get the results based on the query function ID. And we have provided some helper functions over there. We have the next function. If there is more pages for results, this function is defined and you can call it the same way as Klevu fetch, and you will get the next page results. Then we have this click send events. So search has its own function. From the result, you can request this click send event, which it returns a function that you need to call with the product ID and a variant ID, which product has been clicked, in order to send current event data to Klevu. And the same way the category merchandising and the recommendation works. So if you are making a category merchandising page, please use this to send us the events and the data, what the user has been clicking. And here's the example of search result page. It's the same thing as before. We are just using the search term we're fetching from the URL parameters of the current page. And we are providing a list filters. This is something I can show next in the VS Code. But before that, I'm going to show you how the paging works. So here is the paging. So we do the same Klevu fetch. We put the queries and the filters in it. And when we get the search results, we know that there is a next function. And if the next function is defined, we can call it and get the next page results. And this is a point where I show you more in the VS Code. So let's take this category merchandising example. Go this page. So we have a women category heading here. We have the same output, the same init as before, and then we have the merchandising. In this merchandising example, we're making a category merchandising query function. We're defining which category we want to fetch the products from. So there is a structure of women, and under women we have bags. So we are fetching all the women's bags, and we are fetching just 4 products, and we are printing them. And then we have the list filters. You can define which filters you can fetch. From there, you can define what to exclude, and you can modify it a little bit. And also, we are defining that we want to have just 3 options, and we want to have the most used options. And then we do the request, and then we first print the filters, what we have in the result, and from the list filters. So we can see that we want to have just a size and a color. We see that in a color we have 3 options with the filter color label. There is a black, beige, and brown, and the counts of how many products there are, and the current state of the search, that is it selected or not. And the same for the sizes. Not surprisingly, all of the bags are in one size. There's one L size and one M size bag also. And then we have the results in the next object, which we are printing here. And here is the next function I was showing earlier. So if there is a next function, we can call the next function, and the result is the same as the Klevu fetch results. So we have the first page, and then we have the second page of the results. And in here, we can try out the same thing. So let's sort these results by price descending. We can see the most expensive products, and then the 4 most expensive products, and then the next 4 in this example. So that's the way you use it. In this example, there is no events done, but what if we make it so that the user clicks some of the products? We can get this from the first query results. We can see that because it's a category merchandising, this should be defined. So it returns the function. We can call, let's purge, because of the Typescript is telling us that it might be undefined because it might be that we are not in the category merchandising. Now we can call it. When we call it, we get as a return, we get the merge click event. And then it provides us information, what kind of information we need to provide it in order to work. So in somewhere in your product click, you could call merge click event saying that, okay, the product the ID is ABC and the variant is ABC2, and it is in the women's bag. This is all the information we need to provide for the click event to work. The Klevu in the background, we're doing a little bit more complicated information. It's providing us the parent page and all the information, all the products, and which index it was clicked, and so on. So we find this out in the library itself, so you don't have to do all the heavy lifting. So let's get back to the presentation. And then we have the facets. We have the FilterManager, which I was telling you earlier. So you can apply and list facets simply by list filters and apply filters using these modifiers. Like in this example, we're listing the filters, and then we're applying the brand Puma and Nike to be selected. But trying to handle the state of these filters is slightly complicated. So that's why we have a FilterManager. You can initialize the FilterManager in any place in your code. And then when you're requesting filters, you just provide the manager as a parameter. And then you can apply the current state of the manager in the apply filter with manager. And then you can, in any place when you iterate through your options and show the different options, you can say toggle option. This toggles the brands to have Puma selected or not selected. So, and there's other options, other methods to use to toggle the current state of manager. This was shown already. The smart category merchandising is just the one function to make the category page work. It's simple, really simple. And to enable personalization for the GDPR regions, for whatever reason you wish, you can enable or disable it. You can enable it just by providing the personalization modifier, and that's it. The same way the A/B testing works in the same way. It's currently available in the category merchandising, the A/B testing. Just provide the A/B test as a modifier, and it's enabled. And we truly believe that the community is developer experience. So everything works in the Klevu GitHub, the GitHub page, and we're wishing for you to provide us issues, problems, suggestions, and anything you think. The GitHub is the place for the discussion. And that's it for the presentation. Thank you. Here's once again the GitHub page. And for more information, you can send me an email or drop a message in a Twitter. So thank you.